Ooh, what's going on, everybody? This is Brian Parker with Head to Head. Hope everybody's having a great week. We will be getting ready to start our main show at the top of the hour. But as always, I like to jump in a couple minutes early and thank everybody for tuning in. We will be streaming live via LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. And as always, our show also airs on our Roku channel under Empower Network. If you don't have Empower Network, I don't know what's wrong with you. You need to go ahead and add that as one of your favorite channels. It is totally free. So please add Empower Network on Roku, not just to watch Head to Head, but we have Head to Head Sports. We have movies, short films, podcasts, other TV shows, comedy, a lot of different things from a lot of different content providers. So we have that for you. So please do join. We also have our YouTube channel under Empower TV Network. We would love for you guys to like, share, and subscribe to that as well. The show today, we're going to get into it. The panel is going to join us. We're going to talk about what's going on with the Ahmaud Arbery case, Kyle Rittenhouse case, and talk about a little bit about critical race theory. Yeah, I know everybody's favorite topic, right? Well, a lot of people are shying away from critical race theory, but when you look at some of the things that have been done in both of these cases, it further explains, or it should really explain, why critical race theory is being taught. And even though it is not being taught on the elementary, high school, middle school level, it is being taught in college in law classes, because it is exploring the effect that race does have in the fabrics of society. So there's a lot of people out there that don't want to accept the fact that race still plays a part in justice. Race plays a part in home ownership. Race plays a part in pretty much every fundamental thing that's in this country. And if you've watched even a few minutes of both of these trials, from defense attorneys talking about they don't want any more black pastors in their courtrooms. Black pastors. That's pretty specific, isn't it? You know, what if you heard a defense attorney say we don't want any more white people? You know, everybody be up in arms, wouldn't they? The guy literally, as an attorney, can say we don't want any more black pastors because they're going to intimidate our jury. If it's Al Sharpton or Jesse Jackson or whomever, how many pastors do they need? Okay, well, you know, you ever been in a black church, and there's always a lot of black pastors. You can have your senior pastor, you can have your bishop, you can have a junior pastor. There's a whole lot of pastors that can be in some of these bigger churches. So white people understand, y'all might not have that many pastors, but we got pastors. So that's something to keep in mind too. Critical race theory just explores the fact that how is it that a then 17-year-old white guy kills a bunch of people at a Black Lives Matter rally, and the judge starts the proceedings by saying, now listen, the people that he shot, you can't call them victims. But what you can do is you can call them looters and arsonists and rioters. Now they're dead, and we can't call them victims. And then he said, and you know what? Matter of fact, you can't even say alleged victims. He says that's loaded. That's a loaded term. Is it? Any more loaded than calling people arsonists and looters and rioters? You telling me that critical race theory is not fabricated in our justice system? Come on, man. Plus, we also going to talk briefly too about Paul Gosar being censured, which he does give two damns about, for his edited memes anime that he posted with him killing Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, harming Joe Biden, and trying to chalk it up to, oh, that's just me against immigration. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. Hope to see y'all soon. Please share this with all your pals, your friends. Like, share, subscribe. We will see you on the other side of this 5-minute countdown. See you then.
It's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it.
And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. A comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it. And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. A comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it. And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. A comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it. And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. A comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it. Ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. A comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it. And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. A comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it. It's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. A comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it. And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. A comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it. And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. A comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it. And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. A comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it. And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. A comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it.
It's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it.
And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. A comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it. And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. A comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it. And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. A comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it. And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. A comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it. Ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. A comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it. And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. A comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it.
this is ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it.
And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. I'm a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it. And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. I'm a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it. And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. I'm a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it. And it's a ticket.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Head to Head with Brian Parker. I am he. And we are back for another fabulous week with my panel. Oh man, feels good to be back. Had a week off, had a little family emergency, so just prayers for my family. We did lose our aunt this past week, but was at least glad I was able to see her last week before she transitioned on. So it's going to be a little crazy for a while, but we're back. We're going to do the best we can, and the best way to honor people is to keep doing the things that you're doing, and as hard as it is, that's what we're going to do. So let me welcome in our panel. We have Mr. CJ Jones. How you doing, sir?
I'm here. I'm present. Ready to do this thing with you, baby.
All right. And we also have Ms. Lori Parker. How you doing, Lori?
How you doing?
Oh, all things fine. Nothing can be finer than being in Carolina.
That is true. That is very true.
Hey, Jermaine.
And we also have none other than the one that keeps our ratings up, the one that keeps the bills getting paid, the lights on, all of the followers from all over the country. He's our international liaison. He is the Duke of Dance. He is the master of the ceremonies. None other than
He's the closer, ladies and gentlemen.
He's the closer. He goes in. He goes in hard.
He goes in.
He's an international sensation, y'all. It is the franchise, Mr. Jermaine Parker. How you doing, sir?
Man, when you brings them out, appreciate it.
Well, I'm not Steve Harvey yet. I want to sit there and get to the point where I'm like, everybody, show some love.
You are getting it.
Show some love.
Show your love.
Get up on your feet.
And we're still working on your suits. You gotta get you back into your suits.
And your theme music. It's gonna be a whole intro. Especially for his going in segments. But yeah, we're about to go in just a second. But if you are joining us, you are seeing us. We're live streaming on LinkedIn. We're live streaming on Facebook, and we're also live streaming on YouTube as well. Please join our chat, as we like to be able to interact with you. If you have any questions, comments, or anything else that's on your mind, please feel free. We'll read the comments and questions live on the air and interact with you. If you ever would like to be a panelist on the show, please reach out to me at theparkermedia@gmail.com, and we'll definitely send you a link. You can join the show. You do not have to be a political pundit by nature, but if you pay taxes, if you vote, or maybe you should vote, if you're affected by this economy, if you have bad kids, crappy schools, y'all got old books, and all those kind of things, then there is a place for you at this table. Agreement is not required, but conspiracy theories can stay the hell away from me. I'm good.
Think about it.
I'm good. But if you walked on this earth long enough, then you have an opinion about what's going on in the world, or at least I think you should. But if you would just rather just watch the show, hey, we're all here for it as well. We want to get stronger and smarter together. So hopefully we can bring that to you. We've been doing this since August of 2020 and still going on strong. So a lot of that is possible because of my panel, and most importantly, it's possible because of our viewers that continue to grow. If you're watching this on Facebook or LinkedIn, please share. Please send it to other people just so that they can know, so that we can get more viewerships and more people talking and getting into the conversation. If you are a business owner and you would like to maybe do a 30 to 45-second commercial spot talking about the product or goods that you have, we would love to work with you and partner with you at theparkermedia@gmail.com. Let us know how that can happen. And as an example of that, we have this one spot for my friends at Plumbers, Electricians, and Beyond, who is a family-owned business in the DMV area. That would be DC, Maryland, and Virginia if you don't know DMV. But most of y'all know DMV. I know y'all know what DMV is. But they're up there in the DMV area, and they're always looking for some highly skilled contractors to join their team. This is their commercial, and we'll start the show right on the other side.
The trailer.
All right, in the words of Montel Jordan, this is how we do it. All right. Woo-hoo. Please do not put in the comments whether that sounded okay or not. I honestly don't care. All right, panel. How y'all been this week? How y'all doing?
You better cheerlead. You better.
Oh, man. So did y'all see this whole thing about Representative Paul Gosar being censored because he thinks it's okay to tweet out memes of him killing a U.S. Congresswoman and harming the President of the United States? Y'all see this foolishness?
It was just jokes, man. It was just jokes.
Yeah.
I'm just, big deal.
Ain't it funny when those are jokes when you're doing it against people of color? That's kind of funny, isn't it?
Listen,
now,
man, y'all really got to stop being so sensitive, though.
I guess so. Now, here's my thing. You shouldn't really do that.
Just don't joke on me.
You shouldn't do it whether it's a person of color or anybody. I mean, that's pretty crazy. And I think what most people have rationalized is that, you know what? In any other work environment, if that had happened, we wouldn't. What are we even talking about? That person would be fired, and that's not cancel culture. That's just basically workplace violence. If I said and did this same thing about a coworker of mine, and it was, and people at my job could view it, whether it was on a social media channel or wherever. I would be in my boss's office, with probably HR sitting in there.
Along with the policy, with the equal opportunity policy right there, and it's written in paragraph 2, sub-0, section B about hostile work environment. Yeah, it will be there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'd be done.
It's kind of funny. Council culture.
And listening to AOC speech yesterday, she basically brought it around to the same thing. She's like, "Listen,
she did. Yes,
we are U.S. Congress folks, and while that should not be acceptable in the regular workplace, I would think that, oh my God, I would think that we need a,
Mama just said something.
Yeah, I know. I saw it. I can't right now. I'm trying to get my point out, and she distracted me because I half read her comment while I was doing this.
She was probably talking about me.
No, she was not. No, she was not.
Not yet.
not yet, but
you
ain't
said nothing yet. But now, if you say something to take her off, like Jermaine did about funerals and stuff,
Well, she just wants to add in that she adds to the panel a more mature viewpoint.
Me. Yeah. I mean, anytime you want to come on, Methuselah, we'll bring you on. No problem. But yeah, so Ray's like, whoa. We'll bring you on.
Jermaine gave you that look that the blonde-haired attorney gave attorney Gouch just then, whenever he was talking about no more black pastors, and then the female looked at him like,
oh yeah, we're gonna get to that because we're gonna get to that because that room was crickets when he said that. Everybody was like, oh no, hell he didn't. But hold on a second, let me finish my AOC thing, and then we'll go into that. Because that got me. But no, AOC's point was that if the normal work environment would frown upon that, we should be holding ourselves to a higher standard. Now, you can sit there and argue that hasn't been a bedrock principle in Congress for quite some time, as it should be, that our elected officials should be held to a higher standard than the average day citizen. I mean, hell, if you think about it, our president of the United States, no matter who that is, should be held to a different standard. When you got one sitting there doing stuff that you would expect your kids to do on Facebook and Instagram, doing things like that, that's not setting that standard either. So that ship is already sailed in a lot of ways, but her comment is still valid in that we should have that sense of expectation of our elected officials and not let them off the hook by just saying, oh yeah, he was just joking. And then he stands up there like a fool and says, there was no violence in it. It was me against illegal immigration and fighting that fight. Okay, so now you're going to fight illegal immigration and use AOC as the poster child of that, and that's supposed to make that better?
Knowing that she is a person of color. Come on, man. Yeah, I
mean, didn't somebody just go down to El Paso and start shooting up the place last year because he was trying to get rid of a bunch of immigrants and stuff, and he didn't care as long as they were of color. He just started shooting.
Yeah.
So these things have meaning to it. Didn't Gabby Giffords sit there and end up getting shot after Sarah Palin sat there and started putting crosshairs on Congress people in ads?
Yeah. Look, man, this ain't nothing new.
Didn't January 6th just happen? So didn't some dude in a van that I think it was down in Florida sit there and what was he doing? But he was a Trump supporter and he was doing threatening letters about violence, whether it was Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, and stuff like that. Wasn't there a guy sitting out in DC in his truck talking about he wanted Joe Biden to come out?
Yep. Yeah, that's the man from North Carolina.
So when you say
that's
these things are harmless,
those are your QAnon people. Yeah.
When you say these things are harmless, didn't a bunch of people run into a pizzeria because they really believed that there was a bunch of kids getting stuck in the booty in a pizza parlor?
Yes, absolutely.
And drinking kids' blood. So while you might say it's a joke, there are people out there watching that and they're looking at that as a call to arms. And here's the thing, he knows that. He may not have stayed at a Holiday Inn last night, but he ain't that stupid.
Right.
He knows what it is he's doing. They know the dog whistles that they're sounding. And then when they get caught, instead of just flat out saying, okay, you got me, then they come up with some bullcrap reasons. Oh no, these are just jokes. Why are y'all getting so upset about this? It's just y'all didn't laugh. Y'all didn't think that was funny. How about if I did that same meme and it was your kids? Would that be a joke?
We gotta close.
How about if that was your mama? How about if that was your mama or your sister? Because you know what? She's not a mother, but she is somebody's sister or daughter.
Yeah.
So you can say those are jokes all you want, but if it was somebody with the last name, well, if it's Paul Gosar, that probably is a mute point because most of his family hate him. They own CNN, MSNBC, talking about they ain't had a relationship with this dude in years, and because he's a white supremacist and everything else, they turned their back on him. Last time they ran ads against him. Boy, you got to be some kind of brother when your family run. Right. Now, it ain't that they got to agree with you. They just ain't got to show up for Thanksgiving dinner, right? That's what most people do. They come up with an excuse not to show up for Thanksgiving dinner. These folks ran a political ad against you.
Wow.
What a brother.
Wow. You're actually talking about the sister. You're talking about the sister. The
sister and brother. He's got like 4 or 5 brothers. They all jumped on and ran an ad.
Yes,
Mr. Brad Cawthon says the fact that he reposted the image immediately after the vote, to me, says he needs to be stripped of his seat. And that is true, Brad. I'm sorry, he had more comment. Or full removal from Congress. So they did vote for the censure. It went pretty much down party lines. If you ask Republicans, it went straight down party lines because Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney sat there and voted, which if you ask any of them, they're rhinos, de facto Democrats, I guess now, which is not true. We don't want them in the Democratic Party. But they're the only two that sat there and said, you know what? We don't care about the political calculation in this. Like AOC said, why is it so hard to just say that it's wrong? Apparently, there's over 200 Republicans that say, yes, it's too hard to say that it is wrong. So they didn't do that. Thank you, Lori. They didn't do that.
I'm running the show today.
She is running the show today. She has co-host ability. So all of the Chiron, she's working on it. Kind of slow on the intro, but that's all right. We're gonna work on it.
No. I was trying to let you move your point. I actually got a new surprise too. Aha.
Is there another woman in the room with you?
No.
Oh well, damn.
Absolutely not.
No, that's the only surprise I would know about. But
no.
But so yeah, the point of the matter is that he didn't take it seriously. Brad is right, because after he was censored, immediately after that, he took the meme down 2 days after it was put up, saying he was acting like he was doing everybody a favor. But immediately after he was censored, he puts it right back up. And that's what Brad's talking about is that he went right back to it. Now, Kevin McCarthy never condemned him for it, because he is looking to become Speaker of the House if the House flips next year, which is very likely that it could. He is more interested in becoming Speaker. If he starts to condemn these fringe people, whether it's Marjorie Greene, whether it's Gosar, whether it's Andy Biggs, whether it's Matt Gaetz, whether it's Madison Cawthorn, there's a couple of things that could happen to him politically. If they win control of the House, they may not pick him to be Speaker. There may be a revolt where another candidate comes up and they become Speaker, and he's been bootlicking and tail kissing all this time to let that slip away. So he's trying to keep his caucus together to basically say, hey, my white supremacist wing. Hey, my anti-Semite wing. Hey, my immigrant hating wing, my xenophobic wing. I'm here for you. I'm not going to turn on you. And that basically means that he basically sold his soul just to try to shore up enough votes to become Speaker if and when they do take back Congress. You guys.
Everything you said, I wouldn't say it I wouldn't look at it any differently. My views are right in line with yours. So, I mean,
yeah, it's just sad. It's just sad that people will sit there and not understand. After 4 years of Donald Trump and 4 years of being and saying words have meaning, and you have to be careful with what you say, because there are fringe people out there that take those words as directives. How many people have said now about January 6th, Trump invited us. He told us to be here. He told us our country was being taken away from us. He told us that we can't show weakness. If we show weakness, we're not going to have a country anymore. They took that as a directive. He can't then come back and say, "Oh, that was just a joke."
No, and see, we need to stop that. For the people, for those of us who has some sort of sense, we need to stop taking these things so lightly. It's almost like listening to someone talking about being tempted to commit suicide, like back in the day. We used to take it very lightly, and then we were acting so shocked that they actually tried to take their own lives, or they actually was successful at it. We need to stop taking things so lightly, being like, that's just, and then you sit there and you look foolish, and you spend more time trying to react to things and respond to things when you could have just cut it off from the start. I believe it's a shame that AOC had to even stand in that chamber and give a moral speech to grown folk.
You know, I'm glad you said it like that, because she's one of the youngest.
And that's what I'm saying
in there. And there's a lot of people in their 50s, 60s, and 70s and 80s in there that should know better.
And they are far her senior, by far her senior. And she sounds like
she taking them to school.
Her wisdom just covered everything. Yeah. And foolish pride, that's what I call it. It's foolish pride. Because one of the things when I was coming up, I was kind of conditioning the mind that when you're talking government, like that's big. That's something that you want to aspire to be, to get that kind of notoriety, to get that. That was like an achievement. You know what I'm saying? And then, but the way that things are playing out now, it's almost like, oh, well, they ain't no better than us. So it's really nothing for me to look forward to. It's nothing for me to look up to. I know Jermaine can relate to me on this one. Even in the military, you know, we were told as we was coming up through the ranks and everything that we are held to a higher standard. Why? Because we are the government, you know, because you're Air Force, or because you're a Marine, you are Navy, you are Army, you're held to a higher standard. All of these things were things to look up to and grow up to and get on that level. But then when you are looking at it now, it's a joke. And if anything, that's what Trump administration did. When he came in, he basically tore it all down and made it a joke and opened up the gate for all these people are beyond ignorant. I mean, I'm trying not to say some other stuff because I really do want your show to air. So I don't want to say some other stuff, but they take ignorance to a whole nother level.
Yeah, my man Anthony Price. Hey, Anthony, thanks for joining. Good to hear from you. He says I guess he's answering the question: should we hold elected officials to a higher standard? He says we should, but when you got money, that's power. And you're absolutely right, Anthony. A lot of this is based on power and proximity to power. When people are making political calculations about saying, hey, I believe it's probably wrong to incite violence, but if I say that, that vote of mine, if I'll put it to you this way. If that vote would have been anonymous, I think it would have been a little bit different. I think there would have been a lot more yays than nays. I really do. Maybe not by much, but I think it would have been a few more. The problem is that when you do votes like that, it's on the record, and you have to be brave enough to stand by your record. Well, a lot of these folks are saying, hey, we are rerunning in 2022. And if I vote to censor Paul Gosar, whether I think he's a full-on scumbag or not, that could potentially cost me a primary in a district that is normally pretty safe. Somebody is going to use that vote against me, whether it was voting for infrastructure, something that Republicans always want. Hell, Donald Trump ran infrastructure week 27 times in 4 years. Every week was almost infrastructure week. Everybody talking about infrastructure. We need roads and bridges and highways. It's their tagline. So then we finally get you some infrastructure of the stuff that you call infrastructure and you support as infrastructure. And guess what? You can only get 13 of them in the House of Representatives to go along with it. You can only get 19 people in Congress, Republicans in the Senate, to go along with it. There's 50 of them. And if you listen to them before Joe Biden was inaugurated, they were all in favor of roads and bridges and highways and broadband and waterways and maybe not lead pipes, because that kills off higher normal people of color anyway. So we're here for Flint. But those other things they really do see as infrastructure, because and the main reason that they do isn't, well, they all like to be able to go back to their districts, right, and say, hey, that bridge that was falling into the water, I fought for you and I got that bridge redone. They love to go back and run on that stuff. But that's not even the biggest reason, CJ, that they like to go back to their districts with that. The biggest reason is that they like to give private companies those contracts. And those private contractors send PAC money, send all kinds of donations to their next campaign. And it goes into the hands of a lot of private business. So when Democrats sat there and signed on to the infrastructure, that was one of the things where you basically have to make a deal with the devil, because a lot of it is privatized contracts, where they can benefit a lot more off of that. Their friends are getting these contracts to do these enhancements and things like that. That's the main reason. Now they cover it up by having the ribbon cutting ceremonies and everything else like that, kiss a couple of babies and be the consummate politician. But the main reason is that they're taking care of their donors at the same time. That's what they're really trying to do.
That's what it's really about.
That's all it's about. So I can't even sit there and vote my conscience, because if I do, somebody crazier will run against me and I won't make it to the general election because I will get put out in the primary. Anthony Price says, and them private companies are white, not black.
Exactly. So, and that's exactly what they're afraid of. Anthony, they are afraid of losing that tap, because they first they jump in the stream, but now they have to be attached. They don't want to lose that attachment.
Yeah. Well, you see what happens, and Donald Trump was really good at this. He was, for everything that he isn't. There are a lot of things about Donald Trump that you gotta give him credit for. If he wants to excommunicate you, you are dead to the world. Ask Mark Sanford, ask Jeff Flake, ask Bob Corker. Once they sat there and tried to stand up to him, now all of a sudden they're not in office anymore. Look at my man from Chicago, not Chicago, last year that went independent. I can't even think of his name anymore. You know what I'm talking about. I can't think of his name. He was there last year, but he didn't run for re-election because it was just going to be too hard. And now Kinzinger isn't going to run. There's a whole lot of people that voted for Republicans that voted for impeachment for Trump that have already announced they're not going to run. So he knows how to get rid of you. Like if you turn on him, your political future is pretty much dead. Liz Cheney is going to find that out too, because the whole Wyoming GOP just sat there and said, well, we're not going to even consider her a Republican. Go ahead, Jermaine.
She might as well just change her party. I mean, even though
I had nothing to do with that one. She was
That
ready.
was a good one.
Hey,
That was a good one. That was a good
no,
She was ready.
I've just been sitting here listening and stuff,
Yes.
and
I've been waiting on you. I've been waiting on you to do your thing. I was like,
you know what?
he gonna jump in at any time.
I sometimes monopolize time, right? And so I want to make sure, and the week prior to Thanksgiving that I give, because we're not going to have a show next Thursday, right? So I wanted to give thanks this week, and
We're not?
Are we not? We can do it from the house. I don't care. But I wanted to give. I want to give some time and stuff. And so I don't know how to slice this up because you talked about a lot of different things in the last 40.
Yeah.
But I'll start with the congressman and I'll work my way back real quick. I initially didn't say anything to it because it always amazes me when people are surprised about this kind of stuff. This stuff happens all the time. And the thing about it is a joke. It was a joke to him. Just because it wasn't funny to everybody else, it's a joke. Hey, here's a joke. What's the difference between a nigger and a pitcher? You can only hang a nigger once.
Well, I almost came through the camera on your ass.
Was it inappropriate? Was it all those things? Yeah, absolutely. But it was a joke, right? And so a lot of people.
I never heard that joke.
Huh?
Yeah, I had never heard.
I've never heard that joke.
Came through the camera on you, bro. Oh, I actually made that up while we were sitting here.
Really?
Yeah, I made my own joke up.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
All
right. But the thing with that situation is that should he be censored? Absolutely, and it's about responsibility. As CJ alluded to, the big thing when you talk about and what I was taught, like, well, why is it so important that the military have public trust? Well, because we have weapons of mass destruction, and there's a level of public trust. It's the same conversation I've had about police officers and their level of public trust. And so you can extend that out, this conversation, to infinity. And in that infinite conversation, you come to our Congress people who are supposed to be representatives of the nation and stuff. But here's the thing I would argue is that maybe he is being a representative of his people. Maybe that's how ignorant they are. And into that case, he's actually just doing the will of the people, which is what Republicans hide behind now. Because Republicans aren't interested in governing anything anymore. Even when they were in charge, they were interested in governing, actually doing stuff. That's why they never passed infrastructure. They had the same opportunity. They had the presidency, the House, and the Senate. They could have done the same thing. What their priority was to make sure that when we leave office, we can still make money. And so that's the bill that they passed. That was their signature piece of legislation. So should he be censored? Should he be removed? Sure, he should be. But a lot of those guys have said and done things that were inappropriate. It's not just him.
Mm-hmm.
I know my brother, what's the guy? He was just from the Midwest. He's openly a racist. He's not in Congress anymore. God, what is his name?
Steve King.
Steve King.
Steve King from
Iowa. Steve King. I mean, so would I say that Paul?
Oh yeah, he's big time white supremacist.
Yeah, they're all about him.
Yeah. I mean, I got rid of Steve before I get rid of Paul. But it's hard, right? It's hard because should we be making threats against elected officials? No. That's why when Kathy Griffin basically did a beheading of Donald Trump and stuff, she cried and whined because the FBI came and you made a threat against the president, like a really public threat. And so, I tell my children, they say that's not fair. I said, no, whoever tells you the world was fair, the world's not fair. Things aren't even. Nothing split 50-50. So just because somebody receives punishment or judgment on this side doesn't mean that somebody does the same thing on the other side that they'll receive it. And nothing can be more illustrated than that than our current political state, because Democrats, even if it's broken, are trying to govern, right? They're trying to get popular things passed. They're trying to get things moved. Republicans on the other side of that are never questioned, and I talked about this about our two centralist Democrats who always get asked, why are you voting for stuff, but you never ask the other 50 Republicans why they aren't voting for the stuff that is like the infrastructure bill that they are trying to condone their members from voting for. But the first thing that happens when it gets passed is they campaign on it.
Right.
Hey, look, I've been a proponent. I forget who it was, governor, whoever, Republican state says, hey, look, I've been trying to get this stuff forever, and we got $100 million coming to the state. And he's not telling them where it came from, and they're not asking. But that's how they don't have to vote for stuff. They can stand in a position, and it's amazing to watch the craftsmanship of these politicians who can stand opposed to something as soon as it passes and brings benefit to their districts and stuff, will then campaign on the benefits of something that they completely oppose and can maintain their integrity with their constituents because, well, I didn't vote for it, but here it is. And it's as good as if I had voted for it myself. And then when you get into this whole thing, I'm sorry, your last thing you're talking about was getting old.
Yeah, me too.
Huh?
Because I have no idea. I'm looking at Lori's eyes.
Oh, her hair is amazing. I didn't want to put a plug in for that.
I mean, when you fly to New York every month to get it done, of course.
I mean, it looks damn good. I'm thinking about flying to New York to get my hair done.
I mean, I guess that's the move. I guess the barbershop's down here. I gotta go back to my Dominicans. I'm coming, Pedro. I'm on the way.
But I guess before we get into the other stuff, I guess when we talk about what's going on in our political climate, it doesn't change from week to week. We're really just talking about the same things over and over again in terms of this is how it is, and I'm not going in because it's so fun. It's tiring. It's frustrating and stuff. And that's actually the point, right? It's supposed to wear you out. It's supposed to make you apathetic to stuff where you're just like, man, it is what it is. This is just what they do and stuff. But it really does go back to, we always talk about vote, but, where you're voting and what's your vote doing.
Right.
And, a lot of people think that we need two parties to rule, and more than that is, we do. We need more than that. We need a little bit more diversity in our politics and stuff to make sure that your vote isn't being wasted on people that you have to explain yourself to, who should intrinsically know, because they should be representing you and your community. Gerrymandering, the map shouldn't be rigged so to a place simply for votes. It should be to represent people, and that way, a representative from that place would know exactly what it is your issues are and stuff. And you're not constantly having to try to inform somebody about your issues. They should already be there in the community.
So,
what?
that was a lovely
Is that new?
synopsis of what you just said. But if I may interject on a couple of things,
Please.
Especially Mr. Parker had just said.
Which one?
So, just for the record, when I was in New York, in addition to my normal work, but I also was doing some NPower business as well. Actually, was speaking to a couple of different businesses, and actually, my hairdresser is actually looking to move to North Carolina and establish her business down here because I do want her to advertise on here as well. As also, I was speaking with another executive who is a consultant. She is a leader. So I was doing some work in addition to as well. But I still haven't found that person down here. So as long as you're able to get as many shoes as you like, I only go up to New York every 4 months.
Hey, CJ, how you doing, brother?
Man, Anthony Price says the world is not fair to black people. We don't get treated the same as white. Democrat wants to help the people, but Republicans want to keep money for themselves. Yes and no.
Yes and
no. Not totally true, because there's plenty of Democrats or supposed Democrats that you can't tell them a lot of times the difference between them and Republicans. And there are a lot of corporate Democrats. We keep hearing about Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, Anthony, to answer your question before I go into the next topic. But there's a lot of corporate Democrats that don't want filibusters to go away either. They're just hiding behind Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. But I can tell you, Mark Warner, John Tester, Chris Coons, those are more of your moderate Democrats that are probably reluctant to get rid of filibusters too. They take corporate donations and things like that. When you start thinking about folks like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, you start thinking about Rashida Tlaib, Ayanna Pressley, Jamal Bowman, Corey Bush, Ilhan Omar. You start thinking about those folks that will, Katie Porter, Pramila Jayapal, Ro Khanna. You start thinking about those kind of Democrats. Those are not your corporate Democrats. Those are not folks that take take corporate PAC money. Joe Biden, he's a corporate Democrat. He fundraises plenty off those $30,000 plate dinners and stuff like that. Of course he does. And the problem with that in its core is that when people are paying $30,000 a plate to hear you campaign, there is an expectation. Anthony, I'll give you a perfect example. Remember back in the day, maybe you still do it, but back in the day, that girl you really like, and you're going to take her to Ruth's Chris or McCormick and Smith. Weren't some things kind of implied that if we go to this place, there's some expectations how the rest of this night going to be? Versus if I sit there and slam a Big Mac in front of you, maybe not so much. And I'm okay with that because I didn't really have to put in a lot for it. But if I invest and I take you out and I'm whining and I'm dining you, do I really have to tell you where them draws gonna be at the end of the night? No.
You expect a return. You respect the return on that investment.
And that's the same thing when they sit there and they spend on these politicians. You already know as a politician that when they call in that favor, you're going to answer.
You know, the reason that we have the two political parties and people that even if they, we talk about, and I know I've said it on here before, how wide the Democratic Party is in terms of what its views are. It's actually a couple different parties, right? But they need the money from being a part of that major party in order to succeed in their campaigns and stuff. Oh, I know what it was I was going to speak on. So when we're talking about being a kingmaker and stuff for Donald Trump, I think the point that a lot of was Jeff Flake, a lot of those guys missed is that they never actually tried. They self-eliminated. They self-eliminated themselves by saying, I'm not going to run again because I just don't think I'm going to have it back. And they never tested the waters, I think. And
that's true.
I think Liz Cheney, I think if she can survive being, I believe if she can get reelected, it will signal to other people because that's all they're doing. They're taking the signaling, right? Because people who have not spoken kindly for Donald Trump have had a rough time of it. But if you just go back to this Virginia governor's race that won, he was very successful at stiff arming Donald Trump. Not downing him and stuff, but just not like we're not going to be on stage together. There's not going to be clips of us out there and stuff. You can say whatever you want about me and my campaign and stuff, but I'm not really going to acknowledge it and stuff. That's my people, and they're working it out and this and that. And I think 10 months after the fact, I think a lot of people are moving on from the person and trying to get their needle back to party. And do I think it's important for people like Liz Cheney to speak up? I do. I think it's important for her. You got Chris Christie out here writing books and stuff, trying to denounce conspiracy. And he's a politician, so he's half right about the things he says. or he promotes for his book and stuff.
But
And
is he being self-fulfilling, or is he being genuine? Because he basically said, I don't regret anything that I did, because what he said was, hey, I had a choice between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, and I went with Donald Trump because I dang sure didn't trust Hillary Clinton. So in his mind, he's saying the choosing Donald Trump to him was the better choice of the two evils, where a lot of us would say the exact opposite.
Because he chose loyalty over his own uh personal views. So, like, you know what I'm saying? He very well may not have agreed with a whole lot of things what Donald Trump did and what he really stood for, but that is a loyal party. Even when we first started doing this, when we first started looking at the two different parties, you and I was saying that if it's one thing that I can say about the Republicans is that they're going to hold each other down, even if it's just absolutely asinine and ridiculous. They are a party of loyalty, and they're gonna show that support, and that's exactly what he did.
Chris Christie said that he's known Donald Trump for over 20 years outside of politics, and that there was at one point he was rumored to be his VP, then he's rumored to be his chief of staff, and he talked about how he actually turned down the chief of staff job because and so this is a rebranding for Christie too, so take it with a grain of salt. Christie saying that, well, Trump has always known that I would tell him the truth. And man, this thing is distracting. You feel I would always tell him the truth. They put up there. I would always tell him the truth and stuff. And as his chief of staff, he said, I just knew they would set me up to get fired because I tell him the hard things and nobody else wants to tell him. So he just kind of rebranded. And so he's not alone in there's Republicans out there who are trying to bridge the gap between Trump and the Republican Party and themselves, and trying to say, no. The election wasn't stolen. Birtherism was a lie. Even though they held on to that stuff too. They're just trying to get to the other side, and they're trying to get away from that man because it can never be good if one person is steering a party. And I think career politicians understand that, and they're fighting against it. So. And I do say, I think Cheney's popping up, even though the GOP in her home state won't recognize her. What the difference will be for her is the funding. It's not about who recognizes me and stuff. It's all about the money.
Because if she's on the ballot, name recognition a lot of times matters. If I change my name to Brian Cheney, or let me use a different one. If I change my name to, Brian. I guess if I was a Democrat, Pelosi, and I move out to California and it says Pelosi for Congress, and I don't put my face on it, I'm going to win.
Yeah.
I'm going to win.
Right.
So the thing that Christie was saying, and he was speaking at a conference, and half of the room seemed to be okay with it, but the other half not so much, is he was preaching, hey guys, as long as we keep looking to the past, we're going to continue to lose elections. His point was not that it wasn't true. It just seemed to be opportunistic.
Yeah.
And a lot of Republicans that went down the rabbit hole with Donald Trump for over 4 years, whether it was Nikki Haley, whether it was Chris Christie, whether it was Stephanie Grisham, all of these people are now coming out with their tell-all books and stuff like that. And now you're hearing from Jonathan Karl's new book about how even Mike Pompeo and Steve Mnuchin were ready to sit there and do the 25th Amendment and all this other stuff because he was just taking this too far and all these kind of things. Or how Betsy DeVos and Elaine Chao, right after January 6th, decided, you know what? He hadn't done anything too crazy, but once January 6th happened, I'm out. Trying to kind of, I shouldn't be surprised, got a lot of people wanting to whitewash history. So maybe it ain't all past history. Some of that history is as recent as this year that they're trying to clean their image and whitewash. I just don't know how much you can sanitize when I can go back as recently as a year or two, pull up a clip that you did on Fox News, Tucker Carlson, or something else, and show that everything that you're saying is a crock of crap. I don't know if I should give you any cookies because now you found religion any more than you've been a devil all your life. You go to prison and now you come out, you're a preacher.
Let me ask you a question. How much of Tucker's show do you watch nightly?
As little as I can.
Okay. So, and the reason that politicians can get away with saying stuff is because the places that they say these things are not digested by their constituents. And so you can have on tape saying, I'm not going to do that. And then they'll just turn around and say, well, yeah, when I said that, this was, but because you're not going to hold them to a soundbite because they're going to claim, and most people are going to check for the context. And so they're going to explain the context in which you're not presenting a clip. And now the context is now changed for them. And so the answer makes more sense. So that whole thing about holding people accountable and stuff, it's still 1950s. But in today's age, that's not a problem for most politicians. Is that I can say whatever I want to say on Tuesday because by Thursday we will have moved on. There'll be a new news cycle, and that's part of our entertainment informational news cycles that we get, where papers have to create drama and controversy. They got to get people to get in and read their stuff or watch their stuff because they got commercials that they need out there. They need their viewership and stuff too. So a lot of this stuff when we talk about American politics is so multi-layered in what's wrong with our politics, from the money that we infuse into it to the attention or the perspective given by our news outlets to our politicians and what they have to do. You say, well, they're just worried about money. Well, that's what they're taught. Once you get to politics, that's what you're taught. You got to raise money. That's what they do for about 70% of their term is fundraise. They fundraise.
Question for one of our viewers. Random question. Do you think, I think we talked about this on the last show too. Do you think people voted for Biden because they hated Trump or because Biden had a black woman by his side, Kamala Harris?
I think it's a slash now. I think
it was actually both.
Both?
It was both.
Both?
It was both.
But if you didn't have a black woman on the side, I think that the hate is so, and that's the thing where like in this Virginia governor's race, where they ran, the Democrat ran on a platform of Trumpism, and Trump wasn't on the ballot, and so it was good for Joe to do that because he was going against Trump, and so you could see the parallel. But for everybody else, they're not going to be able to use the same thing. But yeah, people voted for Biden because they didn't like Trump. It was again where you're talking about earlier, you saw the. Yeah, what's my option? I don't like this guy, so I got to go for I got to choose.
And I'm gonna pile on that a little bit. It was a lot because people, even though there were more people that voted in this election alone, Trump received even more votes in 2020 than he did in 2016. But the actual winner received more votes than ever happened, and a lot of that can be attributed to the fact that we kept people out of lines because they were able to vote by mail. So that was very successful, and it's something we should continue to do. It just comes to show you that if you make voting more accessible to people, people will take advantage of it. But this was a perfect storm, Anthony. We had COVID. We had some bumbling idiot talking about injecting yourself with Lysol in sunlight, not taking it seriously, watching people die by the millions. And that really hurt him because I'm honestly convinced had COVID not happened, Donald Trump might be the president in the second term.
Or it would have been very close. Or would have been very, very close.
And I'm going to tell you why, because that would not have triggered us to do a lot of the early voting, the mail-in voting, and stuff like that. If we were still doing it the traditional way, 2 weeks of early voting, in-person voting, things like that, would that have energized enough people to vote? I don't know. If you look at it, yes, Joe Biden won the popular vote by over 7 million votes, but we don't win elections based on the popular vote. So I love when I hear the media always talk about Trump lost by 7 million votes. He didn't. He lost by about 40,000 in the key states, where if Joe Biden had 8,000 fewer votes here, 3,000 fewer votes there, the Electoral College would have flipped to Trump. So it makes you feel good to say,
and that's why they don't want to get rid of
that he lost by 7 million votes. Did he really? No, because we don't vote based on the popular vote, which that could be a whole nother show on its own of why we need to do that. But when you look at the Electoral College, and see, Anthony, just as a sidebar, this is why they were really trying to kick it back to the states to not certify the election, because in that case, each state has one vote. Well, the problem with that is that there are 50 states, but there are at least 30, 35 states that are red. So that only leaves you about anywhere between 15 to 18 blue states out there. So if each state gets one vote and all the red states vote for Trump, that's how they were saying, well, Trump could win, because each state gets one vote. So you can't, so they know what they're doing, and they understand. And that's because so much of our country is rural, and a lot of our densely populated areas are all in the same state. Think about 10 million people in New York City. That's more than the state of Wyoming. That's more the state of Montana. That's more people in the state of North and South Dakota combined. So we're in more densely populated areas, but it doesn't represent as many states countrywide. So a lot of people hitched on to Joe Biden because they just couldn't take any more of Trump. I almost believe if it was a ham sandwich, we'd be talking about President Sandwich right now.
Yeah, and I just don't believe I just don't believe VP Harris carried that many.
Me either.
The people who are going to vote for Biden,
we're going to vote for him.
We're going to vote for him.
Yeah, it could have been Pete Buttigieg. It could have been. It could have been. It could have been anybody. It was basically. I'm a North Carolina fan, and a Tar Heel fan, and there are people that are what they call ABCers. Anybody but Carolina. So they'll root for anybody as long as they're in Carolina. Well, there's some people that are the same thing with Trump. Anybody but Trump. So it could have been anybody. It could have. Except for maybe Bernie Sanders. It probably could have been. It could not have been Bernie. But it could have been Klobuchar. It could, well, maybe not. But it could have been, I don't even know, it could have been Buttigieg. Because there's a lot of people that say that they have a problem with. Okay, so Biden was the most vanilla. Now here was the problem with Biden. You couldn't attack him as a socialist. You couldn't attack him as anywhere in the extreme because he was a moderate. So even the moderate Republicans, like the folks that support the Lincoln Project, would find him more appealing. So he was the most vanilla person that they could find, literally and visually. He's very vanilla. Right. Anthony says, I really lost respect when they said Trump had corona. They played that story, but he didn't take it seriously. That's a big part of why he lost.
I would agree with that.
Well, a lot of that is that you feed your base what you need to feed them, and you just pray and hope that you have the resources to get over corona, and he did. He had things that were made available to him that a lot of people don't have availability.
I don't think he lost like that.
I don't think he lost either.
Yeah, I think what happened in terms of, because again, he had more people vote for him than he had in the last election. It wasn't. He didn't lose. Comparatively from 16 to 2020, he didn't lose votes. He gained votes. It was just more people, and so maybe we're semantics at this point. We're talking about how he lost or whatever and stuff, but I just think that more people were energized because they hated him. If there was one miscalculation that he made was and he's probably made all his life, right? Because he's got money, is that no matter what I do, I'll be able to get away with it simply because I've got money or I'm in this position and stuff. He really didn't put enough weight into the, you know what? Well, it was hard. It's impossible from the platform that he was running on. Basically, I say what I want, I do what I want, kind of platform with my people, because that's how his enthusiasm, his rallies and stuff, where I can say I can be outrageous and stuff, and these people are eating it up. They love this kind of stuff. And so, how can you go from I'm that outrageous to no, I want to tone it down a little bit because there's about 10 million people I want to convince?
No, once you go that hard, you got to keep it going.
You got to keep it going and stuff. You know, you're not
right.
too
You want to throttle back.
You got to already, and they're going to double down because
right.
Exactly.
You have reached a point of no return.
Yeah.
So
we just know how many people hated him. Evidently, 7, 8 million people, more people that like him.
Yeah, because of that. I used to know the percent, but it's a small percent. But then when you talk about the extra people that he brought out, these are your nutballs. These are your Trumpites. These are your QAnons. Like before, they were just kind of like back in the cut. They really wasn't doing nothing. But those are the type of people that he brought out. And I believe that's where those extra votes come from. I could be wrong. It's just a personal view of mine. That's where he got that from. It was like I said, when his administration came out, they opened up that gate. And when they open up that gate, you know, all bets are off. Y'all come on in. And that's what I think it was.
All right, y'all. I know I preempted the
show
with this. And Laura, we ventured off onto some other stuff, and you know, I'm getting the final bell, but I just wanted to go into the current cases that are before us right now, whether it's Kyle Rittenhouse, his case where this dude is up on the stand crying and snorting, and the defense has not done, the prosecution has not done a very, very good job of proving that he had the motive to go in and kill people. The self-defense is looking like it's going to take hold, because what happened was he's a kid who had a gun that he shouldn't have had. Now I understand. Now I'm sorry, he's a white kid, because black children of that age are considered adults and threats even without weapons. That's a whole nother subject. But he was a kid. He's up on the stand. He's got the crocodile tears. He went somewhere he wasn't supposed to be. He had a weapon he wasn't supposed to have. And because you go in there toting around a gun, trying to be Billy Badass, then some people start coming up on you, and now you want to shoot them dead. So you're in the wrong place. And now all of a sudden, when it started to get a little hectic, and now people coming after you and stuff, now you can justify, well, the reason I shot them and killed them was because they were going to harm me, or I felt like they were going to kill me. You weren't supposed to be there.
Yeah, that's
and nobody asked you to come there to guard and protect their property. Why are you doing something and you're not deputized?
You know what?
Go ahead, Jermaine. I'm sorry.
Well, you know, I hadn't watched the trial, so you'll forgive my ignorance if none of this is true. But I just don't know anybody who is so into protection and stuff. They go, you know what? That Staples, that JCPenney, I'll make sure they're all right tonight. That you can't reasonably. So, and here's why I know. So, and you can't. At least in North Carolina, I was an armored guard back in the day, and one of the things that they said about being an armored guard was that you can shoot somebody in defense of your own life, but you can't shoot them in defense of the money. You got to feel like your life's being threatened. If somebody walks up to you with no gun, smacks you, and takes your bag of money and stuff, you can't shoot that person, because you can't shoot people over property. It's not worth. It can be replaced. Lives can't be replaced. And I'm not telling you how to rob an armored guard, because they will probably get shot. I'm not sure. I was the only one who paid attention to those kind of lessons.
But Jermaine, let me ask you this. When you did the armored car, were you bonded?
Yes, you have to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think Kyle Rittenhouse was hired and was bonded. I've worked for hotels for over 30 years, and when I hire security and they have a weapon, they have to be bonded.
So
Exactly.
that's the thing, too, right? Is that two wrongs, or in this case, about three wrongs, can't make you right and say, well, since I ended up in this position, just like if you come in my house and all of a sudden you shoot at me because I'm trying to fuck you up, and you're like, well, he was gonna hurt me. Well, they're right, I was, but you can't kill me. You were in my house.
Right.
Exactly.
And that's the thing about all this, right? Is that it's not a really hard thing to argue. It's really not. I mean, I'm a simple dude. I think in simple terms. Let's talk about the jury and stuff. You are not supposed to be there. That's like a man that's gone to some other man's house cheating with their wife and stuff. The husband comes home and stuff, and he now has to shoot the husband in self-defense. Bruh, he wasn't even supposed to be there.
Exactly. That is a beautiful example. That's a beautiful example because in essence, that's kind of what happened. And here's the thing, guys. I'm serious. Jermaine, even though you said you weren't following, it sounded like you did. Because that's exactly what happened, just from a different angle of it. We're talking about what the prosecution had to prove, and where I think, and Brian, I'm along here with you. It was almost like they was trying to throw this case because the only thing they had to prove was provocation. Because once you got the provocation, everything else follows. But it was almost like they was trying to catch a ball and were just doing this. They would get like a few points here and there and everything. But honest to God, y'all.
Well, the problem, CJ, I'm sorry, but the problem is that some of the witnesses for the prosecution actually helped the defense when they said,
right,
and that's what I'm saying. I came after them.
You can tell, like, none of them. It almost sounded like they didn't even meet until the day they had to go to court. I followed this thing, and I was just like, "Are you serious right now?"
Well, CJ, the problem is this. They came after him with the first-degree murder. First-degree murder carries such a high bar in the court to begin with because you're going after intent. The difference between first-degree murder and second-degree murder is all about intent.
That's premeditated intent.
Say again, Jermaine.
Premeditated.
It's premeditated, which means that when I left my house, I intended to kill somebody.
Right.
Maybe not move, but I intend to kill somebody. And you're right. That's a hard hurdle to cross. Most people can't. Most defense prosecutors can't get across that hurdle and stuff. What you can show, and then the judge obviously was the one that threw out the gun charge when he was obviously 18, and he was obviously, obviously under 18, and obviously had a deadly weapon. And that's the easiest charge. It's a charge that they charge black men with all the time, with never having seen, found, or proved that the guy had a gun on him, just to add another charge on there and stuff. It's an easy charge.
It was a technical thing there, Jay. That the AR had to be a certain length, and here's another. That's what drove me crazy. You have the weapon. You can measure it. It got thrown out over inches, guys. It got thrown out over inches.
Well, it got thrown out
over inches.
Here's the thing that they failed to argue is that it was not hunting season unless he was hunting black people. And so, because what the argument is that, oh yeah, you can have the weapon under 18, but why can you have the weapon if you're under 18?
Exactly.
Right.
But you know what I'm saying? That's the only reason.
You can see where they were trying to connect the dots, because he was trying to connect. Well, you really didn't have a reason outside of, okay, it was cool or whatnot. But I can tell where he was trying to go with it, because what he was going to try to do, he was going to try to use the video of him and his buddy looking at the shoplifters, He was going to try to use the pictures and everything of him and his buddy going up to the mountains to go practice, and then also use the connection to it. He himself may not have been a part of this group here, but they had associations with it. So you can see where they was trying to go with it. But
it's not
but like he was trying to build the intent. He just failed miserably at it.
And so you don't, and so like I said, I didn't watch it, so I'm probably all kind of wrong. But you don't have to build intent. When he threw that again, I heard about the judge throwing the gun charge out, and I thought to myself, well, why did he throw it out? He said, well, it's a technicality because it's not long enough for that. I go, okay, cool. So under that provision of the law that allows a minor to hunt with their parents and stuff, because that's really what it's for, right? Is that I can take my daughter or my son with me and we can go hunting and stuff. What exactly was he hunting?
He was hunting protesters /
Well, and so that goes back to the argument. Well, it's no longer a hunting tool. It's no longer a tool. So when is a hammer not a hammer? When I bash your head in with it.
You
can't go back and say, hey, guys, we got to throw out the murder weapon because he's a carpenter.
Exactly.
And what would Jesus do?
So we did have 2 comments from our good friend Brad. He says, could be wrong, but my guess is that he will be convicted, but probably on the lesser charges. Local prosecutors appear to be in over their heads. Judge is absolutely disgusting. He may grant a mistrial after the verdict. Wouldn't be surprised. He appears to be lobbying for an appointment from Trump. Ain't that the truth? If anybody has seen this dude, this is the same judge that before the trial even started basically said, hey, listen, you can't call these people that are dead victims. You can't call them alleged victims because that's a loaded term. He basically said, but if you want to call them looters and arsonists and rioters, hey, go right ahead.
I'm going to tell you where that came from, Brian. And listening to Joe Brown, Judge Joe Brown, he kind of brought it to the light. And when he said it, I was like, oh, that's why the judge did that. Because the judge is looking at the demonstrators, the protesters turned rioters. He used that as a excuse, if you will, to basically say that they turned mob. And because under this thing called mob law, all bets are off. And it doesn't matter if you are underage. It doesn't matter what you're carrying or any of those things. If you feel like this mob has turned on you, you fear for your life. And like Judge Joe Brown say, yeah, fire away. And you're pretty much going to get away with it.
You know,
now,
I was like, if I showed up to a Klan rally and I go, you know what, these motherfuckers, I killed all of them, right? There's maybe a couple survivors because my aim. But I felt threatened at this place, right? I went to this place and I felt threatened in this place.
And that's the problem that we all have, man. Yeah, that's the problem that we are all having. Like as normal society, we are all looking at that.
What? Why did you go there?
Because first of all, let's think about it like this. Even here in North Carolina, we knew that they had a curfew. Okay, so you pass curfew, you're underage, you have a weapon, an assault weapon, mind you. And what comes with an assault weapon? You have high capacity rounds. So that means even if I hit my human target, it's not solid. It's going to hit somebody else. Now, these young guys, when they went to go get their ARs and stuff like that, and it carries multiple rounds in them, at least 30 rounds, they were not going to practice. They were not going to hit targets. They were not going to hit cans out there. If I was coming to a protest or whatnot, the last thing I would want on my body is a weapon, because if I do happen to become or get overpowered, my weapon becomes theirs.
Right.
So the last thing I would want for you to do is to be more armed than me.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And
Well,
I'll just end it right there. I can keep going, but
yeah, we definitely could, and unfortunately, we run out of time for this one. But I'm just gonna end with final thoughts this time. And part of what we're talking about, y'all, if you watch this case, and um, if you watch the Ahmaud Arbery case, these are some really, really tragedies where we're watching defense attorneys use it's funny how one judge talks about loaded language when you say an alleged victim, but talking about not having any more black pastors in the gallery because it's potentially intimidating the jury, isn't loaded, then I don't know what we're talking about. When you as a defense attorney can say, we don't want any more black pastors in here because Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson are known for leading civil rights and things like that. And yet we have a problem with critical race theory being taught in law school. And one of the main things about critical race theory is exposing how racism is in the fabric of criminal justice, just as one example, but a lot of other things. But even in criminal justice, where Kyle Rittenhouse gets to pick his alternates, they're putting it in a hopper and he's pulling out names. Him and the judge are sitting there right next to each other, just the things that are being done in these trials that, Emmett Till didn't get that kind of trial. There's a lot of folks of color that don't get trials like that don't get those kind of considerations like that. And guys, that's why critical race theory is important, because it does point to those things that have been so interwoven into fabric. And the funny thing is that I'm not surprised that the guy said he didn't want any more black pastors, and you shouldn't be either. It's been going on for a long time. Now there's cameras in courts. You can see this buffoonery on display. That's the main thing. But it's not that these things did not exist before. We're just having a little bit more insight into what's going on. So that's what has to change. That's why critical race theory is important. It's not something to make you hate your race or turn on your people or be woke or anything like that. It's for you to be able to acknowledge that this society was built on inequality. And a lot of that inequality, because it's, when I sit there and I build a house, if I put impurities in the foundation, the house is still built on an imperfect foundation. The house can look as nice as it can be. It can have the best wood, the best materials, stainless steel, great furniture and everything else. But it doesn't mean that the foundation of it was built on things that were not impure. And that's what critical race theory exposes is that, yes, these are how these things are, but this is how it was fundamentally built. And there's so many instances where those things start to come back and bleed through. If you're a painter, you will understand this easily. If there's a wall and it has a bunch of mold on it and you think all you have to do is paint over the mold and you'll never see it again, you probably won't be in that profession that long. Exactly. You got to kill the mold. If you don't kill the mold, you'll keep painting that same wall more times than you care to remember. Well, y'all, I could go on and on about that, and we probably will go into that next week, but our time is up. This is Brian Parker with Head to Head with our panelists, Ms. Lori Parker, CJ Jones, and as always, the franchise, Mr. Jermaine Parker. Our other panelist, Mr. Brad Cawthon, did jump in with some very nice comments. Always good to hear from you too, Brad. Thank you to everybody else that chimed in on our comments and everything else. Like, share, subscribe. We will be off next week for Thanksgiving, but we will be back the following week. Look for those alerts. If you're on our Empower TV page, please like that. If you're on YouTube, like that as well, so that the bell will let you know when we're going live. Until next time, we'll talk to you soon. Be safe. And we'll see you next time.
And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it.
And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. I'm a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it. And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. I'm a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it.